The billionaire caught his maid dancing with his son in a wheelchair. What he did next left everyone stunned. Ethan Carter opened the door in the dry Texas afternoon. The hallway breeze carried the smell of sun-soaked wood and the low hum of the AC. He froze as if slamming on the brakes. Right there, between the gray sofa and the woven rug, Mason was laughing. Not a polite smile for adults' sake, but real laughter, bursting out of the small chest that had been silent for 2 years. Since the car skidded in the rain, Amanda was gone forever, and Mason was left in the chair. A young black woman in a neat uniform was spinning the wheelchair around the room, guiding the special car of the little lion. She shifted voices with every turn, vroom vroom like an engine, a tiny roar, then a shy daisy whisper. Mason clapped, weak but with strength. He leaned forward, lips trembling, a faint grr spilling out like smoke. 2 tears shot down Ethan's face. This was a miracle. Impossible, but it was happening. Clang, his keys slipped, hitting the wood floor, the sharp crack slicing the magic. Mason flinched, chin-dropped eyes retreating into the dark place he had lived for 2 years. The wheels stopped. The hum of the AC reclaimed the room. "Who are you? What are you doing with my son Ethan?" Burst out voice unsteady. The woman straightened, smoothed her blouse, took a breath, then smiled. "I'm Bianca Harris. Today's my first shift. The housekeeping agency sent me." Ethan frowned. He didn't remember an email with those details. He looked at Mason. The boy stared down at his hands, fingers tightening like they were hiding a secret. There was something different in her eyes. Not pity, not the label of fragile. She looked at Mason like a normal child, one who needed an adult brave enough to take his imagination seriously. Ethan lowered his voice. You can stay. Just be careful. My son is very fragile." "Yes," she nodded. "I'll be careful." But her careful didn't mean stopping. And for the first time in a long while, Ethan didn't want anyone to stop. The next morning, Ethan, half hidden behind his office curtains, watched through the crack. Bianca didn't just clean. She told stories to the flowers. The roses outside are divas, too hot, too thirsty. Her face tightened like a stage actress, and the daisies whisper, I'm fine. Her voice soft and low. Mason watched closely. He leaned, lips trembling as if laying the first sound brick on an empty foundation. A memory flickered Amanda pushing Mason on the swing. Higher, Mommy, higher. Sunlight brushed her hair, their last Saturday morning. Gone forever. Clap louder than yesterday. Ethan, startled, seeing his son applaud Bianca's one-woman show. He wanted to shout bravo, but swallowed it, afraid to break the spell. Noon. Bianca knocked gently. Should I make butterfly sandwiches? Kids, oh princes, eat better when food is fun. Ethan almost said pointless, but the hope in her eyes erased the word. An hour later, she brought a tray bread cut into butterflies, cherry tomatoes for antennae lettuce wings. The butterflies came to lunch with you, sir. They're hungrier for love than bread. Mason stared, hesitated, took a small bite. Ethan froze at the window, gripping the frame. His son ate because he wanted to. 3 words weighed like the whole house tipping back onto its beams. Afternoon. Before leaving, Bianca knelt eye level. Shall we play again tomorrow? My Prince Mason nodded, barely like a leaf brushing water. But it was a nod. In Ethan's chest, a pea-sized spark leapt. Hope returned. Small, but alive. And as the door closed, a curtain on the 2nd floor shifted. Someone was watching, counting every beat of the boy's joy. Night. Ethan scrolled through old photos. Amanda, smiling, hair tossed back, Mason, clutching her neck eyes bright as stars. He locked the screen. Darkness. Beyond the wall, Mason breathed evenly. Ethan did not. In his drifting sleep, he heard the faint roll of wheels, then a stop, then a tiny maw brushing his ear like rain. He jolted upright, just a dream. But in the morning he would know not entirely. Tuesday morning. The door opened, sunlight stretching across the floor. Bianca was already on the porch, wiping slowly as if painting. "Good morning, Prince," she said warmly. Mason leaned forward. A giggle slipped out. Ethan stayed behind the wall, not daring to intrude. He saw clearly some spells only work when grown-ups don't break them. And upstairs, the shadow behind the curtain had hidden long enough to know what must come next. The Saturday doorbell would be the shot that started it all. 3 days later. Play had become rhythm. Bianca turned the house into a map of adventure. The porcelain vase was the castle of the Cookie Knight. The chandelier a spaceship hanging in the Milky Way of the living room. The staircase the Gentle Dragon's mountain. The dragon only ate oatmeal and loved to laugh when someone clapped. Mason pointed at the object he wanted the background story for, leaning forward like he feared missing it. Every item was a character. Every corner a stage. Every turn of the wheelchair a new scene. Ethan stopped at the doorway, learning to hold his breath so the spell wouldn't shatter. Mid-morning, children's songs came on. "If you're happy and you know it." Bianca tapped her foot. "Spun, once let's dance, Prince. You swing your arms, I'll go on foot." Mason lifted his hand. His arm swayed to the bead eyes, catching the light. Not much, but voluntary. They called that intrinsic motivation, the very thing the files had marked absent for 2 years. Snack time. Bianca set up Crocodile River deep water, crocodiles snapping. Does Warrior Mason dare to cross? Mason locked eyes on her lips. He mouthed. A sound escaped Ma. Ethan held his breath like a man walking a tightrope. Another beat, Ma. The sound broke, fell into silence, but didn't vanish. Bianca didn't shout. He spoke like so many adults would have. She placed a hand on her chest and whispered, "Magic. Your magic, Prince." Her words wrapped at the tiny syllable like a soft blanket, letting it curl up safe inside. Afternoon. Bianca left, her footsteps light. Ethan touched Amanda's photo. He began learning to swap. If only back then. For tomorrow will... A small but hard lesson. Upstairs, the curtain shifted again. Someone had been watching long enough to decide that this rhythm of progress was a threat to the plan they carried in their mind. Saturday. Ding-dong. Ethan walked out. His voice carried a tremor. "Mason, someone special is here to visit." A woman stepped across the threshold. Time stretched like frames pulled long. That height, that blonde hair, those blue eyes, that way of dressing. Amanda's mirror. But not Amanda. Veronica Blake, Amanda's twin sister. Mason let out a strangled cry. His whole body shook as if wind rushed from inside. "Hello, Angel. Aunt Veronica is back." The voice, almost Amanda's, but cold at the bottom. Ethan's hands shook. "This is Veronica, Amanda's twin sister, and this is Bianca, the housekeeper." Veronica extended her hand, smiling without her eyes. "Pleasure. I hope you're taking good care of our family." The phrase landed like a stake of ownership on the ruins of a heart. From that moment, Mason spiraled. He shrank whenever Veronica came close. Looked away, wet the bed again at night. Bianca tried to keep the rhythm of play, but it was as if an invisible hand covered Mason's mouth. And Ethan, facing the double of his wife, was more shaken, more sentimental, less steady. On the staircase, the shadow that had lingered finally drew the curtain shut. The real storm had begun. Night. Ethan passed Mason's room, door ajar. Inside a tiny voice, "If I make noise, Dad gets sad. Dad gets sick, like Mom." Ethan froze. He pressed his ear. The door creaked. Veronica was humming softly, "She, Auntie's here." Ethan stepped back. "Did I hear that right?" but the metallic aftertaste in her words clung like old rain streaks on glass. Morning. Veronica sat in the kitchen brewing tea. "This coffee is awful, Ethan," she said with a smile. Amanda liked it stronger. Ethan reeled at the sudden comparison. Bianca entered, setting down a tray. Veronica tilted her head. "How long has Miss Bianca been here?" "A week," Ethan answered. "Oh." Veronica drew out the word so fast. "Mason seems a little too attached." The comment dropped like a pebble on a newly calm pond. Just a ripple. But a ripple. By the end of the day, Mason was crying. Bianca held him. Ethan hesitated at the new line-drawn housekeeper's son. Veronica lingered at the threshold, her thin smile fixed. Her plan was in motion, and tomorrow morning she would sprinkle in more doubt like a pinch of pepper in soup, just enough to make it hard to swallow. In the days that followed, Veronica's true face surfaced. To Mason, her words dripped like sugar. "That day you cried in the car. Mommy was busy calming you. She got distracted. Every sentence stitched guilt onto a child's shoulders. If you make noise, Daddy gets sad, Daddy gets sick. Just like Mommy. And don't tell anyone what Auntie says. If I leave, Daddy will be alone again." Each word was an invisible thread tightening around Mason's throat. Mason covered his mouth with both hands. When Bianca managed to slip him pen and paper, he drew two identical women in the front seats, one pulling the wheel, one holding, a child crying in the back seat. His lines shook, but the picture was clear. He jerked his hand to the right, mimicking the pull. No words needed. To Ethan, Veronica planted doubt grain by grain. She chose moments when Mason ate poorly, when Ethan was worn down, when Bianca had just stepped out. Don't you see? Since she came, Mason's worse. She invented little plausible bits. She tells him to blow kisses to the sky to talk to his mom. Dangerous for a traumatized child. Then she produced a note found in the trash. "Mason needs a mom." Maybe I can be that person. Her handwriting, but Ethan didn't know. C obsessed with replacing Amanda. One afternoon, Ethan called Bianca. His voice was tight like a string pulled to breaking. "Someone said you told Mason to send kisses to the sky to talk to his mom. Did you?" Bianca stood still. "No, Mr. Carter. I didn't say that. I just tell stories, feed him." And this note, he placed it on the table. Bianca frowned at the unfamiliar handwriting. Not mine. But suspicion had already taken a seat, arms crossed, refusing to leave. That night, Ethan made a decision. From now on, Bianca can't be alone with Mason. The door to play slammed shut. Mason dropped like someone shoved mid-stand, refusing food, losing sleep, falling into silence. The house stayed cold, though the lights still glowed warm. Bianca scrubbed the kitchen, wiped the stairs, but no longer strung stories through the rooms. Mason looked through her as if through frosted glass. Night. Ethan passed Mason's room. He heard it. A voice, not the soft, sweet one she used before him. "If you speak, I'll leave. Daddy will get sick like Mommy." Ethan pushed the door. Veronica looked up, smile innocent. I was soothing him. He just startled. Ethan flushed at himself, but there was a metallic edge in her words, clinging like old rain streaks on glass. Days rolled. Coincidence stacked on coincidence. Veronica knew a bakery that opened just 6 months ago, sang along to a country hit from 3 months back, remembered the new barista's name, knew Ethan had switched coffee brands, changed gym hours, recalled where items sat in the house like someone still living there. Her 2 years in Europe story leaked. Ethan counted the clues, but his tangled heart blurred the lines. Another night. Mason screamed. Bianca, defying orders, ran in, wrapped him in her arms. Ethan caught Mason, clutching her shirt like a drowning boy clinging to a raft. "I told you not to be alone with him," Ethan barked. Bianca whispered, something scaring him. In the doorway, Veronica stood still, her thin smile sharp as a blade. She was satisfied with the storm she was cooking. Morning. In the living room, Veronica's purse tipped. A slip of paper flashed an electric bill for a Dallas apartment 3 months ago. Bianca glanced, replaced it, her heart pounding. She began piecing it together. Not a detective. Just a guardian who knew that if she didn't search, the boy would sink. And right then the beast in the shadows stirred. It yawned wide, showing teeth. Tomorrow's tea would be the bait. Bianca began gathering tiny fragments like a patient puzzle solver. While tidying the living room, Veronica's purse slipped off the chair, its strap catching the armrest before spilling open. A few things rolled out: lipstick, sunglasses, a folded stack of papers. Bianca instinctively bent to pick them up. Her fingers brushed the edge of a page, her eyes catching a bold line: Dallas Power and Light, an uptown Dallas apartment address dated 3 months ago. She slipped it back into the bag as if nothing happened, but her heart raced. The woman who claimed she'd been in Europe for 2 years had an electric bill in Dallas. The first piece locked into place. The next day, Veronica stood in the kitchen stirring tea, with one hand scrolling her phone, with the other showing off Europe pictures. The screen lit for a second long enough: North Park Mall, geotagged 4 months back. Another shot at a local bakery that had opened 6 months ago. No Paris, no Rome, just Dallas. Bianca said nothing. She memorized. Later, in the armchair drawer, where Veronica often sat, a blister pack tumbled out when she tugged too far. Bianca glimpsed the CVS Walgreens label: Veronica Blake, high-dose sedatives prescribed 6 months prior. She slipped it back. Clues lined up like tin soldiers' bill photos pills. The Europe story ripped apart like rotten silk. Among Ethan's papers forgotten outside the safe, Bianca's eyes snagged on a headline printed like a siren inheritance transfer: 50,000 Susan dollars. The date matched the week Veronica returned. Bianca drew a sharp breath. The motive glared: cold and clear money. And an old obsession named Ethan. Now, only one testimony was missing. The testimony of the sole witness in the back seat the day the car veered off the road, Mason. She seized 5 minutes when Veronica stepped outside for a call and Ethan was in the garage. Prince Bianca whispered, slipping paper and pen into Mason's lap drawer: "For me, just you and me." Mason looked at her eyes like a pond with dark clouds overhead. He drew. 2 identical women in the front seats, one pulling the wheel, one holding. A child crying in the back seat. He jerked his wrist right, mimicking the fatal swerve, then pointed straight at the one yanking the wheel. Bianca asked softly, "Aunt Veronica?" Mason nodded, hard lips, trembling, tears spilling like a broken dam. Words weren't formed, but the drawing shouted. At that moment, Veronica's shadow filled the doorway. How long had she stood there? Her smile was thin as burnt sugar, her eyes glacial. "Sweet picture," she murmured. "You two are very close, aren't you?" Ethan entered seconds later, confused by the charged air. Veronica seized control. "It's nothing." Bianca was comforting, a little too much. Her words fell like ash, but the stench of threat lingered. The next afternoon. The house held only 3 people. Dallas skies dimmed, gauzy clouds dragging past. Veronica carried out a tray of tea, white porcelain steaming jasmine faint in the air. "Have some ease the tension, Bianca," she said sweetly. Minutes earlier in the kitchen, a pill had been split in 2, its powder dissolving in the cup. Bianca sipped. A strange bitterness bit her tongue. Instinct screamed. She set the cup down, turned for a cloth. When Veronica's gaze slid away, Bianca poured the rest into the potted plant by the chair, returning the cup with its wet ring on the saucer. Veronica moved closer, voice low. "Someone's too curious," she whispered. "The past holds things better buried. You have an old mother in that little greenhouse, a younger brother at the gas station on the boulevard. Shame. If something happened, don't you think each word a slow-driven nail, painful enough to remember?" Bianca kept her breath steady. She leaned back, feigned heavy lids. Veronica watched, lips curling. "Good," she muttered, stepping into the other room. When she returned, her hand held a thin rope. The light caught the braid, throwing a cold halo on the wall. Just then, small footsteps dragged along the hall. Mason appeared at the doorway, hair-tousled eyes still hazy with sleep. Bianca shot upright instinct, pushing her back until her spine hit the cabinet, no way out. Veronica blocked the door. "Perfect timing," she whispered. "Say goodbye to Miss Bianca." Her tone, still sweet, stripped of warmth. Bianca locked her gaze, forcing clarity. "Veronica, don't do something stupid." Too late. Veronica replied, her smile a blade, splitting an envelope. And then what hadn't happened in 2 years happened. Mason saw the one he loved cornered, and something snapped. "No." His first shout in 2 years. Clear, loud, splitting the air like lightning. The rope slipped from Veronica's hand, hitting the floor with a flat thud. "Don't hurt her." Mason pointed hand, trembling, but sure. She pulled the wheel. 3 broken phrases, sharp as shards of glass. An arrow straight into what had been hidden too long. "Dad," Mason cried, voice cracked yet strong. Ethan stormed in from the hallway, stunned by the sight Bianca cornered Veronica, blocking the rope on the floor. Mason, trembling but speaking. The living room became a courtroom. Ethan's eyes locked on Veronica's. "Look at me." "Say what he said isn't true." Veronica shook. She denied. She fractured. I just wanted Amanda to stop." She sputtered. She threatened to tell. I'd lose everything." Ethan's face blanched. "You jerked the wheel. You killed my wife. You let my son carry guilt for 2 years. And today you tried to stage Bianca's suicide." He pulled his phone, dialing 911. "I need officers at this address right now. There's a murder confession and an attempted murder here." 15 minutes dragged like a lifetime. Dallas PD burst in, red-blue light slicing the ceiling. Handcuffs snapped around Veronica Blake's wrists. She cast Ethan one last look. "I always loved you," she said, voice warped, eyes dry. Ethan shook his head, clutching Mason's shoulders. "Love that kills isn't love." Bianca leaned against the wall, cold sweat on her temple, her knees buckling as adrenaline drained. On the floor, the rope lay silent, a second confession. The story turned at the exact moment Mason's "no" ripped the 4 walls wide open. The news exploded, online headlines flashing between the sensational lines, "Twin sister crash $50 million inheritance living room confession." Reporters circled at the gate, cameras charged and ready. Ethan blocked them, polite but firm. Mason was not a show. Police closed the file. The trial came. Veronica Blake received 20 years. The sentence landed like a coffin lid on 2 relentless years of guilt, threats, and manipulation. When the prison doors shut, a soft breath escaped the Carter home, quiet as a leaf falling. Inside, the air changed. Mason no longer startled awake at night. He began to speak more as if returning stolen syllables to the world. First, single words, yes, no, Dad B his name for Bianca. Then, short phrases, B read, Dad dance more song. Then, full sentences, Dad I can do it. The tone was broken, but enough for the family to hear the future inside it. Play therapy returned to children's music butterfly sandwiches, the wheelchair spinning to the beat. Ethan tried to dance clumsy awkward, making Bianca laugh until tears rolled, while Mason clapped like a conductor. Some days were hard, Physical therapy ran longer than expected. A sudden rain left Mason silent, remembering the crash. Bianca sometimes trembled at the screech of brakes behind her. But instead of hiding, they faced it, counting breaths, placing hands over hearts, naming fear like naming a guest. Fear shrank when seen. Nights once wet now stayed dry. Meals once pushed away now ended with second helpings. The house smelled of oven-baked bread, sun-warmed wood, the sweat of 3 people laughing while dancing badly together. Ethan and Bianca drew closer, like 2 workers replacing beams in a broken house, small nails, patience, few words. 6 months in, they dated slowly, burgers on the porch, kite, flying in the yard, grocery trips on weekends, like rituals of healing. A year in the house felt different. Mason's drawings filled the hallway. A guitar leaned against the wall. The plant beside the chair, once poisoned with drugged tea, now grew wildly, as if fate itself was mocking. Mason still used a wheelchair, but it no longer defined him. He had friends, a talent flying paper planes over the fence, and a dream to be an engineer of fun wheels, as he called it. One breezy afternoon, sunlight poured like honey over the grass. Ethan knelt level with Mason's chair. He opened a velvet box, looking into Bianca's eyes as if through a year of storm and rainbow. "Bianca, will you marry me?" The question wasn't fancy, but it struck home. Bianca laughed and cried at once, covering her mouth, eyes shining. "Yes!" Mason shouted, "Yay!" then sent his green kite soaring over the roof. "Miss Bianca will be my new mom. Okay, if you want, then Mom wants." The answer closed one circle of pain and opened a door with a new nameplate, family. After lunch that day, they visited the cemetery. Amanda rested beneath a cool stone, her name etched deep dates like 2 silent lines. Ethan pushed Mason's chair, Bianca at his right, her hand resting gently on the boy's shoulder. The wind moved through the trees like someone whispering, "Come speak." Mason took a breath. "Hi, Mom. I came to say I'm okay." "We're okay. Bianca's going to marry Dad. She takes good care of us. I think you'd like her." Ethan squeezed Bianca's hand. Mason laid a flower on the stone. "Aunt Veronica won't hurt anyone anymore. Rest easy, Mom." They stood still a while, letting the wind pass through their hair, letting sorrow pass through held hands. No loud crying, but something heavy melted in their chests. Night, the porch, stars rising. The Dallas air smelled of warm grass and sun-soaked wood. The yard light cast gold on 3 shadows leaning close. "Dad is Mom, happy up there?" Ethan looked up, tired but calm. "Yes." "Is Mom mad that Bianca is the new mom?" "No. She only wants you to be happy." Mason smiled, face tilted to the sky. "Thank you, Mom, for sending Bianca to us." Bianca swallowed, reaching for Mason's hand, then Ethan's. 3 hands, braided like beams, crossing to hold weight. Life wasn't perfect. There would be summer storms, longer therapy sessions, mornings with coffee spilled on white shirts. But one thing would not change: the truth had been spoken. Love stood in the right place, and family was something chosen by heart, not just by blood. At the start, the clatter of keys had shattered the spell. In the middle, a single "no" tore down 4 walls. At the end, a small "yes" in the garden built a warm roof. If you believe a small voice can change the course of a life, leave a line in the comments. And if this story touched you, like, share. Subscribe so that other brave NOs have a place to be heard and turn into tomorrow's yes.